The film opens in 1985 by showing a lighthouse keeper named Thomas. When Tom is on guard, he sees a woman who has passed out on the beach. The woman turns out to be injured, and Tom immediately takes her to his house. When the woman wakes up, she tells Tom that her name is Atlanta and she is the queen of the underwater kingdom of Atlantis. She escapes from the kingdom because she is forced to marry King Orvik, someone he doesn't love at all. Tom allows her to live with him, and they live together as lighthouse keepers. As time goes by, they fall in love with each other and they are finally blessed with a son named Arthur. Atlanta hopes that her son will be able to unite the kingdom of Atlantis and the surface dwellers. The family lives a happy life until Atlantean soldiers come to ruin their happiness. They force Atlanta to surrender and return to the kingdom, but Atlanta refuses and kills all the Atlantean soldiers. Atlanta knows that they won't stop to catch her, so she will decide to return to Atlantis and marry King Orvik in order to save Tom and her son. A few years later, Arthur has now entered elementary school and the school is on an aquarium tour. This is where Arthur's power begins to emerge. When his friends bully him, suddenly the shark and other fish in the aquarium become angry and attempt to destroy the aquarium. Luckily, Arthur calms them down, and they immediately line up behind him. Everyone is amazed to see what Arthur is doing, and since then all his friends call him Aquaman. When Arthur is a teenager, Atlanta secretly sends her trusted advisor named Vulko to teach Arthur various things including swimming and fighting. Under Vulko's tutelage, Arthur becomes a real man who has mastered various skills. However, he hates Atlantis very much after learning that his mother was executed by King Orvik for having relations with surface dwellers and having a half-breed son. The scene continues several years later by showing some modern pirates robbing a Russian Navy submarine. The robbery is led by Kane and his son David. At first their plan works perfectly and they don't have any problems, but suddenly something hits the submarine and makes them panic. It turns out that he is Arthur who has come to save all the crew of the submarine. He enters the submarine and easily defeats the robbers. David tries to fight Arthur, but Arthur is superhuman and even his sword cannot penetrate his skin. Kane comes to help his son and shoots a grenade launcher at Arthur. Even though Arthur is hit by the shot, the bullet doesn't hurt him at all, and Arthur immediately throws an iron pipe at Kane. When Arthur is about to leave, Kane fires his gun again, but his shot misses and causes the submarine to leak. At the same time, a torpedo is released and hits Kane's leg, so David begs Arthur to save his father. Arthur refuses and abandons them because they are bad people who murder innocent people. Kane tells David to leave and pulls the grenade on purpose to commit suicide. After his father's death, David promises to take revenge against Arthur. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, two kings named Orm and Nereus from different kingdoms are having a secret meeting in a special place called the Seven Kings Assembly. Long ago, all the kingdoms of Atlantis united under the rule of a legendary king named Atlan. Orm is Arthur's half-brother because he is the son of King Orvik and his mother is Atlanta. Orm begins to influence Nereus to reunite the entire kingdom of Atlantis and declare war on the surface dwellers because they have done damage to the ocean, in which they always throw factory waste into the sea and cause much more damage. Nereus warns Orm that the Brine Kingdom and other kingdoms will not submit easily. On the other hand, there is a rumor that Atlanta has an illicit relationship with surface dwellers and has a son. Suddenly, they are surprised by a submarine that comes to attack them, making Nereus and many of his soldiers injured. Fortunately, Orm easily destroys the submarine. After the attack, Nereus finally agrees to declare war against the surface dwellers. The attack was apparently carried out by David to avenge his father's death, but a few moments later, some Atlantis soldiers come to see him to deliver a message from Orm. Orm tells David that Aquaman is not one of them, and he gives David gold as a sign of their alliance. Meanwhile, Arthur just comes out of the bar and takes his father to the car because he is heavily drunk. Then a woman named Mara from Atlantis comes to tell him about the big news. Mara is Orm's fiancée. She asks Arthur to go to Atlantis and stop Orm's war plan that could cause millions of people to die because Arthur is Atlanta's eldest son who has the right to be heir to the throne. However, Arthur refuses and promises to avenge the cruelty of Atlantis by sending his mother to the beasts of the Trench Kingdom. On the way home, Arthur feels something strange after seeing thousands of birds huddled away from the sea, and it turns out to be caused by a big tsunami. Arthur tries to escape, but the tsunami hits his car and separates him from his father. Luckily, Mara comes to save them on time, and afterwards she immediately removes the water from Tom's body. Arthur is very grateful to Mara for saving his father, but Mara warns Arthur that the tsunami is just the beginning. Yesterday's disaster caused hundreds of deaths and great damage. The tsunami also sent all the garbage in the sea back to the mainland. Arthur is finally willing to go with Mera to Atlantis to stop Orm's madness. After arriving at the Kingdom of Atlantis, they must pass strict checks first, but Arthur doesn't need to worry because Mera has a diplomatic identity and is the daughter of King Nereus. Arthur is amazed after seeing the beauty of Atlantis for the first time, and Mera takes him to a secret place to meet with Vulko. Vulko tells Arthur to usurp the throne because Orm has influenced 2 other kingdoms to attack the surface. Arthur has to find the golden trident that was made by the greatest gunsmith of all time because it's the only way Arthur can become king. The trident belongs to King Atlan, and if Arthur could obtain the trident, then all of Atlantis would bow to him. Vulko begins to tell the story of when the 7 kingdoms united. At that time their civilization was very advanced and technology was growing rapidly, but power made them too ambitious and one of their technologies suddenly became nuclear, which caused Atlantis to experience great downfall and drowning. However, at the same time the massive fall gave them the ability to evolve and breathe underwater, while King Atlan himself spent the rest of his life in exile and his trident was never seen again. Vulko shows him an object found by his team of archaeologists a few months ago from the first dynasty of the Desert Kingdom. He believes it contains an ancient record that will show where the resting place of King Atlan is so that Arthur can find the trident. Suddenly, Orm's soldiers come and attack them because they managed to detect Arthur's presence there. Fortunately, Vulko and Mera are able to escape from there, so that their rebellion against Orm is not exposed. Arthur tries to fight the soldiers, but he forgets that he is now in Atlantis and all weapons can hurt him easily. In the end, Arthur is defeated and they will hand him over to Orm. Arthur is tied up like an animal, and he is furious after Orm starts insulting him. Orm tells Arthur the reason why he wants to fight against the surface dwellers is that the surface dwellers are constantly destroying the sea and polluting it with their factory waste. Arthur doesn't care about that reason and will not let the war happen. He challenges Orm to a duel, and if Orm loses he must stop the war. Orm happily accepts the challenge, and they will fight in the Ring of the Fire arena. Before the fight begins, Arthur realizes that Mera is Orm's fiancée. When Arthur enters the arena, all the spectators insult him for considering him a bastard and a traitor. In the battle, Arthur almost kills Orm by making him fall into the fire, but Orm manages to survive. After a fierce battle, Orm manages to break Arthur's trident and defeat him. When Orm is about to kill Arthur, Mera unexpectedly comes and attacks Orm. She sacrifices herself to save Arthur and tells him to escape from the arena. Although Orm and his soldiers shoot them from behind and damage their ship, they keep trying to escape from there. They almost fall into the lava before finally using the opportunity to remove the trace by purposely dropping their ship into the lava. Then they meet a group of whales. Arthur can understand whale language and asks for help hiding in their mouths. In the end, they both manage to survive because Orm thinks they have died falling into the lava. They rush to continue their journey towards the Sahara Desert in search of the Desert Kingdom mentioned by Vulko. But Mera doesn't realize that the bracelet on her hand is a detection device that allows Orm to track where she is going. Orm immediately orders his elite soldiers to kill them, but King Nereus threatens to sever the alliance between them if Orm dares to kill his daughter. In the following scene, Orm sends some soldiers to deliver a message to David. Orm gives David a special weapon and armor that have extraordinary power. It is like a plasma weapon and only needs water as the bullet. David happily accepts it because now he has a weapon that could kill Arthur. When David returns home, he immediately researches the weapons in order to develop them. Meanwhile, Mera's device manages to detect the location of the kingdom they are looking for. Mera doesn't know anything about the sky and jumps without a parachute. They initially find nothing in the desert, but suddenly Arthur falls into a hole. The hole turns out to lead them to the Desert Kingdom they're looking for. They find something like a round table, and Mera puts an ancient record from Vulko on it. Nothing happens at first, but they are sure that it still works. Mera then takes a few drops of Arthur's sweat and puts them into the ancient record they have. The way they did finally work, and then the message from King Atlan appears. King Atlan talks about his trident and gives them some clues about the location of the trident. To get the legendary trident, they must travel to the ends of the world and seek it in the hidden sea. They must look into the bottle to find the map, and only the true king will see it. Then a bottle appears, and it turns out that the bottle contains a map. Arthur and Mera immediately rush to Italy according to the directions on their map. At first, they can't solve the riddle, but Arthur recalls Atlan's clue that only the true king can see it. There, they discover several statues of Roman heroes, and Arthur tries to identify all of them until he realizes that only Romulus became king and was the first Roman king. Arthur immediately puts the bottle on Romulus's statue and manages to find the next destination. The clue tells them to go to the end of the world where the hidden sea is. But suddenly they are attacked by Orm elite soldiers and David, who calls himself a Black Manta. Arthur tries to fight him, but he doesn't know that David has Atlantis armor and manages to hurt him many times. Now David is not an easy opponent because he has the Atlantis weapon, but fortunately David's costume has a system failure and he kills himself instead. Meanwhile, Mera refuses to return to the kingdom and tries to fight off all the Atlantean soldiers. Luckily, Mera manages to defeat all the soldiers after realizing that they can't breathe on the surface. Arthur is seriously injured, and he tells Mera to take off her bracelet because they are being tracked. In the following scene, they finally arrive at a scary sea that is filled with storms. They are surprised by the appearance of the scary creatures that inhabit the sea. At first, Arthur and Mera try to fight them, but the creatures are too numerous and they are forced to hide inside the ship. Luckily, Arthur finds some flares, and it turns out that the creature is very afraid of light. Arthur takes a few flares just in case and immediately dives into the water in search of Alan's trident. It turns out that the sea is the kingdom of the Trench, where Arthur's mother was executed. Millions of Trench creatures try to eat them. Fortunately, they find a source of light, and the Trench creatures finally stop chasing them. The light turns out to be a huge vortex underwater. When they try to enter it, the vortex throws and drags them elsewhere. Mera falls unconscious while Morosaurus tries to eat her, but luckily something comes to save her and takes her somewhere. Arthur suddenly appears on the surface, and apparently he is in the hidden sea that he is looking for. Someone who saved Mera turns out to be Atlanta, and she is still alive. She is finally reunited with Arthur. Atlanta tells Arthur that she survived and has been there for 20 years. She also shows him where Atlan's trident is. The trident is in a secret place in the waterfall, but the legendary monster named Kraken always guards it and won't let anyone take it. Arthur immediately enters the waterfall to get the trident. He manages to find the trident, but while he is about to take it, a giant creature described by Atlanta suddenly appears to attack him. Although the creature is too powerful and keeps attacking him, Arthur doesn't give up and keeps trying to get it.
So be it.
When Kraken is about to kill him, Arthur uses his ability to communicate with him. Kraken is very surprised because no one could understand his language before except King Atlan, and Kraken finally allows Arthur to take the trident. Now Arthur has succeeded in obtaining Atlan's trident, and all of Atlantis will submit to him. Meanwhile, Orm also managed to unite 3 other kingdoms to join him, and now he is about to invade the Brine Kingdom to force them to join him in fighting against the surface dwellers. However, the Brine Kingdom doesn't want to submit and chooses to fight against Orm. In the battle, Orm almost kills the king of the Brine Kingdom before finally a giant creature appears from below them and immediately attacks Orm's army. It turns out that the creature is controlled by Arthur and frightens all of Orm's troops. The whole of Atlantis is amazed to see Arthur has Atlan's trident and is able to command all the inhabitants of the Kingdom Trench. Arthur easily controls all of Orm's cavalry and counterattacks them even though they keeps attacking him. Arthur then lures Orm to a duel on the surface because Orm previously defeated him in the underwater. The duel is inevitable and witnessed by kings from other kingdoms. At first, Arthur has difficulty fighting Orm, but he uses a move that had been taught by Vulko, and he finally manages to defeat Orm. Orm tells Arthur to kill him, but Arthur refuses and will not kill his own brother. Atlanta then comes and tells them to stop the bloodshed. Orm is surprised and relents after learning that his mother is still alive. But Vulko immediately orders the soldiers to arrest him because he has committed war crimes like Hitler and other dictators. Now Arthur doesn't have to worry because all of Atlantis finally accepts him as their rightful king, and Atlanta finally reunites with Tom after years apart. The film closes by showing David, who is still alive. He is saved by a doctor and scientist named Stephen Shin, who is very obsessed with a fairy tale of Atlantis. David is willing to help him find the Atlantis kingdom on the condition that he must help him find out who Aquaman is.